Ladies and gentlemen, there's no better way to get up in the morning than to get up with Garret. Garret is a third-generation success credentialed real estate entrepreneur who's here to give you tips, tricks, and share stories of success. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Garret Bedford.
Good morning, Dougie.
Good morning.
Good to see you. How you feeling?
You too. I got a little bit of a giant hangover, but I'm getting through it. I'm getting through it.
Well, look, it's been a few weeks since we've all been together.
Yes.
I think we clearly saw the Giants went into Minnesota. I think we predicted they're going to win that game.
Yeah.
And, any Giants fans got to be looking in the mirror this morning and saying, we're thankful, we're grateful for an incredible season where we way achieved what most people thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we also should have maybe a moment of silence for the funeral of Tom Brady, no longer having to worry about Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin. Now that he's, pulled a Michael Jordan and finally done the second retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if Eli Manning will be cleaning up the hallway in the Hall of Fame. We should ask our old friend Dan about the Hall of Fame, because I'm sure Tom Brady's going to get his own wing in the Hall of Fame, right? But I feel like Eli will be there, that janitor in the middle of the night, cleaning up his mess. So it's exciting. I feel great. I got back from a trip to Palm Beach, spent 2 days working on our Salons by JC. Shout out to all our ladies and friends down there, and especially our manager, Constance, who is crushing it at our Palm Beach Gardens. If you don't know anything about that area, I've learned a lot too. There's Palm Beach, which is like old school money, right? Like literally the JP Morgans of the world going there.
Mm-hmm.
West Palm Beach, of course, is west of the water and the airport. Lots of development, tons of cranes. And then there's also this great area, Palm Beach Gardens, which is picking up as well. We have one of our Salons by JC locations in a Publix anchored shopping center with Planet Fitness there on, they call it A1A, alternate A1A is the highway. And we took it over during COVID. It was challenged, like every other business was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And we've literally turned it around. We have like one suite left to rent, where we only had maybe 15 available when we took it over. And our manager, Constance, who's got a real estate background, a New Jersey tough background, really kicking ass and taking names. So I was down there. Just real quick, I sent you a photo. I don't know if you have it of me in the room with Kimmy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was just hysterical. I was blown away. I love traveling and meeting our salon owners and seeing the inspiration that they bring and how uplifting it is for women and minorities to own their own business. So that's what we just love this concept. And I got to meet Kimmy. She does nails, and it's totally on track with, I love Disney. I'm sorry. I just think about taking my girls to Disney World. And as I looked around her room, she had all these cute little nail arts of different princesses, and was really going after the kids, had a snack basket of everything my kids would love and your kids would love. And even like the little Keurig machine was pink with the coffee cup from Belle and Chip from Beauty and the Beast. And so I just was so excited to see the originality she brought. And look at her wall, how she literally took these, palm leaves, etc., in multicolors and did the neon. And that's her logo wall. It's just gorgeous. Like, she crushed it.
Nice.
So that's just some of the originality we see as we travel.
So the part of the story that I want to know is that Salons by JC you have now expanded to Palm Beach.
Well,
we have a home now. We have a place we can go visit, and like we gotta go make a video down there.
Absolutely, that is definitely a travel expense that you can write off on the undefeated P&L.
Yeah,
because it's on, man. It's hot, and we're doing well. We're excited about it down there. We're talking about actually renovating the salon because it is a little dated from when it was originally built. We purchased it. I don't talk about it a ton. We purchased it during COVID, literally, I want to say like June of 2020. And we didn't know anything. We kind of went in there and said, all right, we need to turn this around. We need new management. We need to refresh it. But we saw the upside, the opportunity, 40 to 45 women that had a chance to, still own their own business. Just because COVID was shutting down and, they couldn't work, didn't mean that they should lose that chance long term. So we felt it would kind of financially be a little bit of a loser for a little bit to get through that period. But we were able to work it out with the landlord and create a new healthy work environment and invest some new capital. And it's on its way. And this 2023 vintage will be, the best group and the best financial success of the history of the salon. So we're excited about it. And, I'll let you know if there's any. It's not really a market. Like, we're not looking to open 5 or 10 more JCs in that area per se. We're still really focused on northern New Jersey, and of course we have the 3 in North Carolina. But it's part of the family, and it's a nice perk to go on a business trip and say hello to all our snowbirds. Any snowbirds that have maybe your parents or grandparents have moved down to Florida. That sounds familiar if you live in the New York, New Jersey area. So so that was cool. So I want to get right to it. We have an awesome guest today. And I don't, Salon, I put my phone on do not disturb, but that doesn't work, Doug. Okay. It doesn't work. I'm getting blown up all day. We have an awesome guest today. She goes by the tag handle on Instagram. Let me see if I get this right. New York Giants fangirl, right? At New York Giants fangirl, Adriana. And I want to welcome her to the show. She's launched her own podcast covering all things New York Giants. And I think it's a great time to hear about where she's come from and her history and her Giants fandom, and talk a little bit about this past season and where we're going next year. So I know she's in the green room enjoying the red and blue M&Ms we left her, right, at MetLife Stadium. So let's bring her on. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, you guys, for having me. So excited.
Awesome. Amazing. And so I was telling you earlier, I discovered you on Instagram or somewhere on the podcast. Said, they have all these different algorithms. You got to follow these people. And I was just blown away by, your New York Giants fandom. You really know your stuff. Your commitment to the Giants, and kind of your patience and how you presented yourself, and was just really, really impressed. I was like, all right, got to follow you, got to get to know a little bit about what's going on here. I love the Giants, of course. Doug, Pat here, everyone's following the Giants at the Undefeated Media Studios. So let's start with, tell us kind of about where did this come from? Where'd you learn to be a Giants fan? How'd you grow up a Giants fan?
So I grew up in northern New Jersey in Bergen County, and my grandfather had season tickets back then when it was Giant Stadium, as I wish it still was. So him and my uncle had a pair of season tickets, and, they went to a lot of the games. He took my mom to the games. So my whole family is really a Giants fan. I have 3 brothers, and, I always joke that the reason that I know so much about sports is part of it is because I grew up with 3 brothers. I wasn't, trying on outfits with my sisters and that whole kind of thing, but also because I lost the remote battle all the time. So if I wanted to watch something, I had 3 people ganging up on me, and it was always ESPN. So I didn't really have a choice. But yeah, so my whole family is Giants fans. We've always been like that. Some of us a little more than others, but it's been, the thing that I love about the Giants is that it's such a historic franchise, and it really brings people together. And that was kind of my goal of starting this Instagram page. And Giants fans are like no other. They are hardcore. They know their stuff. I've gotten to some arguments with Cowboys and Eagles fans, and they're just not on the same level as us.
The Giant fan is a sophisticated fan, right?
Yes.
I just want to take a moment and thank my parents and my family for making me a Giants fan, because I'm 43 years old. I'm not going to ask your age, but when I grew up, I've now seen 4 Super Bowl victories, right? So I'm 4-1. We obviously had the loss against the Ravens. I've been to 2 of the 4 victories in person, which were amazing, both against Tom Brady and the Patriots. And so, but I have friends, Dougie, that are Jet fans. And if you're 40 years old and you're a Jet fan, right? You should be, really mad at your parents for making you. Well, because you've had 2, and I'm sorry to beat up on the Jets so early, but like, you had 2 really fun years with Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez and the butt fumble. Other than that, I just have like no idea what the hell you're doing on Sunday before Red Zone came on, right? That was miserable. Having to watch the Jets as the other game for all those years, totally miserable. Red Zone's changed that. DirecTV's changed that, obviously. But I would like to see the Jets try to pick up, Aaron Rodgers and really make a go of it next year. It'll at least make it interesting in the area and the media. So for me personally, it's funny. My family business was an office supply company that my grandfather started. So I'm a 3rd generation entrepreneur, and our company was a corporate sponsor of the Giants, way many decades ago, when that was a much smaller kind of arrangement than it is now, right? We're not talking like $100 million, ridiculous kind of thing. And we got really fortunate. We got upgraded and got great seats at the old Giant Stadium. And, my dad was always working, right? He never coached the soccer team or the baseball team. He would sponsor the team. And, was very, very much involved in my life. But when it came to sports, like, we didn't play catch, we didn't go shoot hoops. That just wasn't the relationship. But we did go to Giant games together, And of course, my dad's still around and very active in my life and my kids' lives. But I think your memory is very similar to a lot of Giants fans because the Giants are a family business, right? You're talking, Tim Mara, Wellington Mara, going back to 1925. This is not some big conglomerate, some big corporation like Disney had, bought the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, et cetera. There is a real lineage of people to their parents and their grandparents in kind of the good old, fedora hat wearing days of the Giants. And I think they've always been looked at as a first class organization. They don't necessarily sign players that are, kind of on the edge. Like, they're not necessarily bringing on the Antonio Browns of the world or Randy Moss when there's questions about character. They typically stick to it and they don't make a lot of changes, right? So, like, Ernie Accorsi was the GM for a long time. And he's the one that drafted Eli Manning and then Jerry Reese. And it's like a slow, only in the past kind of 5-10 years has there been a more turnover in the coaching side and a little bit of, we've lost a little bit of that. But typically they've been very consistent, kind of like the Steelers, right? Jeff, thanks for copping in there. There's Jeff Krensman, the host of Mind Your Pucking Business, our sister station here, right?
Yep.
Sister podcast,
Absolutely.
who's celebrated over 1,000. What was it? Not 100.
100.
Slow down, Jeff. Slow down. 100 episodes. So it's good to hear that that's where the fandom comes from. And then do you get to go to a lot of games this year?
This year I went to a couple. So I've been in Connecticut about 2 years now, and obviously one of them was during COVID, so I didn't get to go to any games. But this year, the team was doing so well. So I went to the Cowboys Monday night game, the whiteout game, and then I went to the Lions game. And I was thinking about it. In the last 4 games that I have been to at MetLife, the Giants have lost. So I just said, you know what? I am going to take one for the team. I'm going to stay home the rest of the year. It's going to go to the Colts game. And I was like, it's such a big game that if anything goes wrong, obviously I know that I am not the reason why the Giants have lost the games, but I am a little superstitious. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. And then next year, the 2023 season, I'm going to re-up my luck and I will go back to MetLife and, feel good about them hopefully winning some games. So this year I'm waiting on the schedule to come out, but I'm hoping to get to a few more home games and maybe an away game or two if the schedule works out.
That's awesome. You went to the whiteout game, right?
Yes. Yeah, it all makes sense now. So I was thinking it was what jersey I was wearing. I've been to every home game and I'm thinking what jersey is, and it's Adriana messing things up.
It was my fault.
Doug definitely goes to every game.
Every game. I've been to every game. Luckily, I mean, I have a friend who has season tickets and she's like, oh, my stomach hurts or it's too cold. And I've been every home game. So
and I have season tickets. And I think I went to 3 games. I think I typically go more in September, October. Yeah. A little warmer out. That's when you usually go with my wife and like another couple, and then we go maybe the guys go or another group or whatever.
The hot toddies. The hot toddies help that problem.
But let's unpack the 22 season. What did you think from training camp from the beginning? Did you think that with Brian Daboll's first year, putting in a whole new system with Joe Shane obviously having not much to work with financially with the cap, did you think that this team, and be honest, had a legitimate shot of making the playoffs, of having a winning season? What was kind of your goal and expectation as such a big fan?
Not a shot. I was going into the season, I felt like there were so many variables that I am typically an optimistic person and an optimistic fan. So I felt like the best case scenario, they could get 7 wins in the beginning of the season. I'm looking at the schedule and feeling like, okay, if things go the way that they're supposed to go, I think we have a shot at maybe splitting with the Eagles, splitting with the Cowboys. We could probably beat the Commanders. So I'm looking at it from a realist point of view, but also a little on the optimistic side. So I had them at the best case winning 7 games. That to me felt like, I really felt like Daniel was going to have a good year and I felt like Saquon was going to have a good year. So I felt like with those two, then maybe we had a shot. But I mean, the playoffs were just not even a conversation. I mean, when Joe Shane said in his press conference, we're going to rebuild and we're going to win while we do it. I was like, that's a big promise you're making to Giants fans. Right. We have seen, not only have we seen horrific football and coaching the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of very ugly losses. And, you know, I liked Brian Dable when he came in. I liked Joe Shane when he came in. But at the end of the day, we had pretty much an entirely new coaching staff, and our head coach is a rookie. So I'm just thinking, there's no way this is going to be a 10-win team and we're going to the playoffs. There's just too many variables. We had a ton of rookies, and I just felt like, you know, I'll be happy if we win 7 games because it'll be better than what we did last year and we'll see improvement. And then, you know, hopefully we're going to be able to keep guys like Jones and Saquon. And that was going to be a good year for me. So when, you know, they made it to the playoffs, and not only they made it to the playoffs, they beat the Vikings, I just thought, oh my God, it doesn't get any better than this. You know, regardless of what happens with the Eagles game, we have had so much improvement from last year to this year that I just don't think you can't be happy as a fan.
Absolutely. You've got to be happy. And look, I mean, I'll be honest, I started kissing the baby a little bit. I was looking for Super Bowl tickets. I was looking for hotel rooms, you know, this shitty Ramada Inn in Glendale. That's $900. Typically would be $100, Dougie.
Oh.
And I was like, this is like that 2008 Magic, you know, that 07, 08 Magic to me was like, oh my God, we're on the road. We're going to do this again. I mean, I had that moment, and there's other people that are watching the show that told me that they also started looking as well. Mm-hmm. Even though obviously I think when you kind of look back objectively, there is a huge, in all fairness, although I hate the Philadelphia Eagles, and I always say, you know, being an Eagles fan is like throwing up in your mouth. It's just pretty disgusting, or not taking a shower. I have to admit, there's definitely a talent gap between the New York Football Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. You got to be objective. The Cowboys spanked us a couple times, but they were so inconsistent. And for some reason, whether it was Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, the Cowboys under Jerry Jones in the past, I don't know, 15 to 20 years, they just know how to lose instead of like figuring out how to win, you know? But the Eagles talent gap is like, we will not go anywhere in the next couple of years if we don't close the gap. And that's just being objective.
Yep.
What do you think, Doug?
I mean, these filthy Philadelphia people turned off the water at the hotel.
Yeah, heard about that.
There's no coffee. There's no showers, and that's why we didn't show up.
You mean they didn't have their Dunkin', right? You gotta have your coffee.
Yeah, America runs on that stuff, man. We didn't have it.
The Giants love Dunkin'. I would see the ads. Eli loves his Dunkin', right?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I yes, the Eagles were better, but
I don't we would have won had they had their coffee.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Hard to argue with that one objectively. But, you know, you look back at the schedule, there were a number of really, really close games that the Giants were able to win. But historically, the Giants, I think to your point, the Giants have always kind of lost those games in the past 2 or 3 seasons under this group, right? And I think that was one of the major shifts where they figured out how to win the close game. I still think they need to work on how to play from ahead a little bit. They seem to always play from behind and catch up. But, you know, the Packers weren't the Packers this year. The Titans weren't the Titans. But, I mean, let's talk about what were some of the memorable victories this year. I mean, do you remember that Ravens game? You know, those turnovers at the end with Lamar. I mean, we really made him look not like MVP Lamar. I was blown away by that. And, of course, you know, the standout game for Danny with the Colts and the Vikings really playing his best 2 games of his career when it mattered the most. Were there any standout games for you or moments that you want to mention?
When Dable went for 2, you know, as a fan, you're on the sides going through both types of emotions, right? Like if we don't get it, this is going to be the worst decision ever. But if we get it, it's the best decision ever. And obviously it worked in our favor. But I think for me, that was a huge turning point to give me faith in Dable, because obviously as a first-time head coach, you know, we didn't know what he really was going to be. And when you think about the decisions that the coaching staff made last year, when on 3rd and 8, we're doing a quarterback sneak on our own, 5-10 yard line because they're afraid to throw the ball. You go from that to Brian Dable going for it for 2. And automatically for me, it was just like, this is a shift. And I feel like that changed a lot for a lot of people. And I feel like it really set the standard going forward. So for me, that was a huge part. But I also feel the same way that you did, that, you know, Daniel stepping up, having the 5 game-winning drives that he had. I mean, even to see, you know, that Packers game with McKinney stepping up with that pass deflection, and, you know, Julian Love with the interception. I'm just, these guys who've been on the team for so long, who are playing their best football right now. That was really exciting to me, because I felt like the coaching staff really, they just know what they're doing, and they're getting the most out of these players who, you know, have not done as much over the last few years. So, you know, that play from McKinney was huge for me. Incredible. I felt like, you know, that was a big game too. You know, it's the Packers, it's in London. You know, I had a wedding in Boston the night before, and I'm like shaking my husband out of bed at 8:00. I'm like, we have to go right now. I don't care how hungover you are. We drove to his brother's house in Massachusetts, and like, he had this big TV set up. I'm outside, I'm watching the game. When there's like 20 seconds left, his aunt and uncle are coming in. I'm like, you guys need to get away from me right now, because there's going to be a lot of screaming no matter how this game goes. And when McKinney with the pass deflection, I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh my God. I remember that London game. We were in Hershey Park. My daughter Harper, it was her birthday, and we went to Hershey Park, and we woke up, we watched the first half in the hotel room, and it looked pretty bleak. So we said, all right, we got to go. We had to get out and go to whatever we were doing in the Hershey world. And I'm like, I got it on the phone. I'm watching. I'm scrolling, refresh. And next thing you know, we're in line. And I'm with some people from Wisconsin. I'm with New York. I'm with Philly. And I'm like, oh, my God, the Giants have a chance. They have a chance. And I'm on the ESPN app. And we went nuts, and we were high-fiving. And I think, to add to one of your points, I think it was a change of culture is what happened this year. And I think it became this, like, we're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to run the ball. We're going to run, you know, between Danny Jones's legs and Saquon Barkley's quads, we're going to actually be like one of the best running games in the NFL. And we're not going to apologize. We're going to play to win instead of avoiding losing, and which I think resonates to entrepreneurship and in business and in life. Like, a lot of people don't start a business and don't go for it because they're afraid of being embarrassed. They're afraid of losing money. They're afraid of not making it, yet they totally forget about all the steps to being successful and making money, et cetera. And I just think that the Giants have had a change of culture. And in addition, by the way, I should say the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion, were really enjoyable to watch their shift of culture as well over the last year or two, because those have been kind of, you know, doormat, step on them, make fun of them. Whereas, you know, the Jets still, I think, aren't there yet. But both those teams legitimately, like, could have really got a run going. So I think culture's critical in a business, in a football team, in any sport, and it starts at the top. And, you know, you mentioned that Brian Daboll was a rookie head coach. To be honest, I kind of forgot that. Like, I've been thinking he's going to win Coach of the Year, but I have not thought of him as a rookie head coach, because he just seems so cool and calm. He's got the Jordans, he's got the aviators, the Nike sweatshirt. Like, he's rocking it. He's so confident. I actually saw him and Joe Shane at Varka, the great fish restaurant in Ramsey. It was like Mother's Day weekend right after they got hired. And I walked by, and I couldn't figure it out for a second. I didn't see Daboll first. I saw Shane first. And I'm like, I know that guy. He kind of looks like me. Kind of feels like someone I could know and be friends with. But I couldn't figure. I'm like, who is this guy? And I watched all his press conference. And then as I walked by, I was like, oh my God, that's who it is. And then I saw Brian Daboll's big bald head, and I was like, oh man, this is great. This is going to be an awesome year. So that got me started. But let's talk a little bit about you know, what it takes to kind of go forward in business and transition. I mean, I give you a lot of props and a lot of credit. You know, as a young woman, you put yourself out there. You're on Instagram. You're talking about, you know, a sport that's probably been historically male dominated in terms of journalism and media coverage, right? What did it take for you to start the podcast, put yourself out there? Did you have to go buy a lot of equipment? Did you spend a lot of money? Were your family telling you this is crazy? You're going to get all these, you know, dirty sexual things sent to you and make you feel uncomfortable? Take us through a little bit about that process, because there's people in our audience that are thinking about starting a business, starting a podcast, and you went for it. So I'm proud of you for that. So let's hear about that.
Thank you. It's so I It's funny. I never considered myself to be very creative, but I think as I've gotten older, I've allowed myself to think that maybe I am creative. And I don't know why I've been telling myself that I'm not and I can't, because I always felt like, well, I'm not an artist. I literally cannot draw anything better than a stick figure. I can't play I can't sing. I can't play an instrument. So, to me, growing up, that was creative. And I think, part of it is getting older, but part of it is the way that the world has changed, is that you can be creative in a million different ways, and you just have to let yourself kind of go through it. So when I used to teach fitness, and I did that for a couple years, and I ended up going back to full-time corporate work. And at the time, I was trying to figure out my style again. I was going from wearing leggings every day and having my hair in a ponytail to, putting makeup on every day, wearing business clothes. I basically didn't own any. I had jeans and leggings. So I thought, if I'm going through this transition, if you will, I'm sure there's other people out there that are. So I started an Instagram and I started a blog, and, it was kind of just trying to figure out a corporate wardrobe and put these outfits together. And, I'm 32. So I wanted to feel like I was, I really like fashion, and I wanted to feel like I was being fashion forward without being constricted to corporate America. And, I started that, and then COVID hit. And then I start working from home, and I'm back in my leggings. So I'm like, well, that didn't really work out the way that I wanted it to. So I kind of put any sort of side thing on hold and just was doing whatever. And we moved to Connecticut about 2 years ago. And, I'm still doing the corporate thing, but I work from home now. And I have, more free time than I did when I was in the office. And, I wanted a creative outlet. And I also felt like we live in Southern Connecticut in Fairfield County. And I noticed that there's a lot of Giants fans around, and we don't know anyone. I mean, we moved here mostly for work. And, to me, so I started the Giants thing thinking like, maybe I can build a local community of people who want to go to a bar on a Sunday to watch the game. Because I lived in Massachusetts for 3 years, and I dragged my husband to a bar every Sunday to watch the Giants get destroyed during the Joe Judge era. And I'm there in my Giants gear looking like an idiot. So I was like, maybe, and he's a Pats fan. So I was like, I need some more Giants friends who, want to go to bars or maybe travel to the games, whatever. So I started this page, and I started it last season prior to this one with the Joe Judge era, where we're going for it on 3rd and 8. And, I was like, I need someone to talk to about this, because I'm watching this in my house. It's so frustrating that I just feel like there has to be other people out there who love the Giants as much as I do. I see them at tailgates and just want to talk about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. The worst case scenario is the same thing that already happened to me. That something like a COVID hits, people tell me I'm stupid, or they don't like the Giants as much as I do. And I just kind of was like, you know what? I'm at the point where I don't really care. I think part of it is age, where you get to this point where you're like, okay, someone can call me stupid and say I've never played football, so I don't know anything about it. They're a stranger on the internet. I don't care what they think about me. Why should I let that affect what I do and what I care about? So I think what's also been rewarding for me is not only have I talked to a lot of other Giants fans who we can talk about everything now that's going on, but I've seen my numbers grow, which proves to me that me being myself and putting myself out there in whatever that looks like, that people resonate with it. So now I have people who message me and say, did Jones sign the contract? Who are we going to pick up in free agency? And I'm like, it's so funny because, I also had people saying, I was on a bachelorette party during the Vikings game, and people are like, are you going to go live after the game? We have to talk about it, whatever happens. And I'm like, well, people are relying on me now for information. So I'm like, It's just been a really wonderful, the way that it's evolved. And it started with Instagram. And then I realized that, I've been making the reels on Instagram, and 90 seconds is not enough to recap a game. So that's where the podcast came into play. And at first I wasn't so sure about it. And I just said, what the heck? If no one listens, they don't listen. It's the same thing, right? I have people on Instagram so I can share it with them. If they don't listen, they don't listen. I could always stop it. So I actually was able to not invest a ton of money in it. I would say the hardest part for me was figuring out the back end of things, because I don't really know how the whole thing works still. So I'm still learning.
Me neither. That's why I got Doug.
That's why I got
Undefeated Media here in our fancy Bergen County studio.
Absolutely. Adriana, we got to chat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do? Did you literally Google like how to start a podcast, or what were your steps?
Yes. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, whether they're giants or I listen to some entrepreneurial ones and health and wellness, the whole thing. So I have heard some good advice from people who've started it, but I really just Googled where to start. And I came upon StreamYard. So I do that when I have guests on, and that's been a great platform, and it's been relatively user-friendly and easy. And then when I do my solo episodes, I actually use GarageBand. So that's been easier for me to figure out how to edit. And again, thank God for Google, because I'm going, Google, how do I take a GarageBand file? How do I download? How do I get it on this platform? And, I've had a lot of frustrating days, but when people say to me, I love your podcast, you do a really good job, I'm like, okay, I have to do it for the people now. There's people who actually listen, they care, they want to hear what I have to say. And it's fun for me. I mean, after the Vikings game, I was like, this is going to be such a fun podcast, because it's awesome stuff that I'm talking about. It's a little bit harder after a loss, but but it's great.
Have you ever had any anybody from the Giants organization, or any players or former players, reach out and be guests and want to be involved with your program?
Yes. And that's another thing that's been incredible. I was able to connect through someone on Instagram who connected me with Howard Cross. So I had Howard Cross early on. I think it was during week 5, week 6. So it's great to talk to him. And actually, this is a funny story. So now he follows me on Instagram. And when I was debating whether or not to go to the Eagles playoff game, Howard Cross DM'd me and said, do not under any circumstances go to Philly. That's and I amazing. Was like, when there is a former New York Giant who tells you not to go to Philly, you do not go to Philly.
I guess we should remind our millennial watchers, our audience who have no idea who Howard Cross is. He was a fantastic tight end, 87 maybe, during kind of the
I think it was
late 80s, early 90s maybe.
So yeah, it was something, I think it was 91 to 2001, because one of the things when I was researching him that I wanted to ask him about, fun fact, he is the only Giants player that was on the 91 and 2001 Super Bowl teams.
Wow.
Is that the right
there
dates?
You go. I love a good fun fact. You know what? It only took a half hour to get a fun fact. That's good. I like a fun fact. So he messaged and said, don't go to Philly. I would agree with that. I have no interest in going to Philly for an away game. I'd have no issue going to Dallas. I think it'd be great to go on some more road games. I went to Carolina one year with my father-in-law. That was fun because I do a lot of business down there. I don't count the Super Bowls as road games, but I think it'd be like a fun, cool guys trip or couples trip. We're talking about maybe going to Vegas this year because the Giants are going to play in Vegas. I think there's some other maybe some warm weather games this year. So you really haven't spent. It's not like you went and spent $5,000, $10,000 to go start this up. You what do you use for microphone and stuff, or just talking to your iPhone or your iMac? Or
so I got a microphone actually off Target. I was doing some research on Amazon and whatnot. It was a winner. It's I also got it because it's cute and it's white, so I liked that.
Wrong with that. I like it.
So I bought a microphone. I bought a microphone stand. GarageBand I already had on my computer, and then I pay for Podbean every month, which is where I upload the podcast file, and then it pushes it out to Apple and Spotify, which I still haven't figured out how to get it to other platforms, but I'll figure it out someday.
We got you. We got your back.
Okay. I can use some help with that. And then what else? And then I pay for, I think it's only Podbean. And it's like,
cool.
And StreamYard. So I pay for both of those. I would say it was, well, when you do the monthly fees or whatever, it's
but under $1,000 to start this up.
Easily. I mean, the microphone was like $30. The stand was probably another 20. Podbean, I think, is like 14 a month or 25, and StreamYard is 14, whatever. Either way, very affordable.
Have you thought about figuring out an economic model to this? Like, would you think about maybe having advertising or having some type of joint venture or paid spots? I mean, you think about, for example, David Tyree. He now owns Juice. I think it's called Juice Fresh or Clean Juice in Morristown. There's a number of different retired giants who, didn't make 30 million a year and are out there hustling, right? Maybe they made $2 million is a lot of money to me and you kind of in our pocket, but it's not a lot of money over the whole length of your professional career. And then after taxes and agents, et cetera, people think every athlete from that era was, rich. It's not true. Even someone like Howard Cross, probably I would venture to guess, never made $1 million a year in that genre. So I wonder if there's an avenue there to find some sponsorship opportunities. Maybe this could be a financial. I mean, I guess right now you'd call it, I don't know, side hustle, hobby, whatever you want to call it, but it could really become a sustainable business for you at some point.
Definitely. And actually, my brother-in-law has a lot of experience with podcasting. He worked at Entercom for a number of years. So he's been an excellent resource for me too. And he put me on to a website called Podcorn, where you can apply for sponsorship opportunities for the podcast. So I haven't found one that I think aligns perfectly just yet, but I do have that. And I've thought about that process. And I know from a lot of the other podcasts that I listen to that they have been able to get sponsorships and that type of thing. So it's something that I definitely would like to do down the line. I feel like I might not have a listenership just yet. But I do think that with the season ending, my hope now is I've been able to talk to guys like Brandon Jacobs via DM and David Tyree. So I am hoping that I can get guys like that in the off season, and that will help as well. My goal one day is Eli Manning, but I'll get there.
So is Eli Manning your favorite giant of all time? That was one of the quizzes I put on Instagram promoting the episode. Is he your fave?
He is. I really grew up during, the time that he was the quarterback. And I think, we've seen a lot of players come and go, and there's a lot about Eli to love. And my biggest thing about him is I think he just really embodies what it means to be a giant. And he's, I haven't met him personally, but he seems like a wonderful person off the field. And, my big thing, and I know that these players, they're young and they have to learn. I think about the things that I did at 23. I would not want them broadcast in the media either.
Nope.
But they're young and they have a lot to learn. But you see guys, even the same with Jones and Saquon and Darius Slayton and Julian Love, off the field, they're never in the media. And I just think that when you're a football player, you want to be in the media for either having a great game, doing well in the community. Those are the types of things you want to be in the media for, not getting kicked off an airplane. So it's just, I think that embodies what it means to be. Yeah.
Or
what
on
it means to be a giant. Yes. Oh God. That's
I mean, I would actually argue, that if Xavier McKinney doesn't have that injury, self-inflicted injury, forget what exactly he did in the bye week. And then also Bellinger with a really weird kind of eye rake, like WWF style. Without those two injuries, I think the Giants may pick up one or two more wins. I thought they kind of lost their way in the middle of the season. And obviously the schedule plays a big role in it. But boy, without both of those players, I saw a different team. So let's transition into kind of what's the next steps here. Obviously, a lot of Giant fans are super curious. And they do now come to you for, like breaking news and information. The big two things are, will we sign Daniel Jones and will we be able to get Barkley? How do you feel? Do you kind of have 1, 2? Is it Jones, Barkley? Is it Jones at any cost? Is it try to get Barkley respectable? Do you think he's, kind of dispensable since a running back can be found maybe in the draft? and we've all loved the year he had and the career he's had. He's an incredible, incredible young man. What's your thoughts about the next moves? I mean, Joe Shea now, this is the time to earn his keep, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing before that, I want to say that along with the Bellinger and the McKinney injury, to me, losing Adoree Jackson was huge. And I would say that if we had him in for a couple of those games, I think we would have won a few more. And I know that it's all what if, but when you look at those three guys and the impact that they had on this team, I just think there's no comparison with Adoree on and off the field. I mean, you look at even in the playoff game, what he did to Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver in the league. So, so I'm glad he's healthy. But to me, it's Jones number one. And I like Daniel Jones. I was not thrilled when they picked him because I felt like Eli had more time in him. It wasn't really about Jones. It was about the fact that we still had O-line issues. And if we picked someone to help the O-line, maybe Eli could have had a couple more years left in him. But the thing about Jones, and I love him, I am glad that he had an excellent year. When you look at the numbers on what, maybe he's earned, I think there's two things that contribute to it. The first is that you have to look at the whole body of work. And as a fan, I will argue he had a bad O-line for many years. He had awful coaching and he did not have good weapons. So yes, that all plays a factor, but he had one good year out of 4. And to say that, because he had one good year and I believe he's going to only get better in the next couple of years, but for that to be your only reasoning to pay him something like $40 million, I don't think it's good enough.
That's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Jordans, Dougie.
Yep. Well, and you look at the guys that are making 40 million. I mean, it's at 40 and up, it's the Dak who doesn't deserve it. It's Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, who,
crazy, right?
Right. So
it's got the guy liner.
Yeah. And then, I'm not giving him anything close to 40.
Mahomes
so I don't think he's got
40.
anything.
Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow are in a whole other level to the rest of the league.
Yes.
They are.
And you do not put Daniel Jones in that bucket.
He's not there yet.
Right.
But, actually my nephew, Jake Rosenthal, who's a Philly fan, I'm sorry to say, or an Eagles fan, they live out there. He wrote in when I promoted your show, he said, is Daniel Jones a legit QB1? That's what he wants. So that's the question for you. Is he a legit QB1? I think the answer is yes. I think he's shown himself. I think going down and the number of interceptions way down over the past year, the number of touchdowns going up, obviously the yards per rush. Dougie's constantly betting over 30, 40 yards per game on FanDuel that Jones will rush. I don't know if you're into the whole betting thing as well, but we're always thinking on Jones running. And I think being a dual threat, see, there's probably only one person out there who doesn't really listen to the show too much, but I see she just threw some hearts in the comments. My wife, Jessica, she'll step up and say, I've been all about Danny Jones since day one. Since the minute they drafted him, I defended him. I loved him and I loved Eli and love Eli. But I felt that the game was changing in terms of being more mobile in the pocket. And that's where a Peyton, a Brady, and Eli. And by the way, Eli was just tough as nails. Go rewatch the NFC Championship game against San Francisco from 2011, 2012. Holy shit. For people that haven't seen that game, you want to see how tough someone is and what it's like to actually be in the game. And, being available is one of your best assets in business and in sports. But from day one, I felt Danny Dimes with the right coaching, the right tutelage, would be even better than Eli. And I think what we're seeing now, in my opinion, going forward, Danny Jones is like if Josh Allen and Eli Manning had a baby. He is so smart. He is going to continue to become patient, to make the right decisions. And football is a long game of field position, of working the clock, of not making mistakes. And so being able to throw the ball either to a check down, to a Barkley type, or just throw it out of bounds and not get that sack. There were so many times this year where Danny Jones didn't take that sack that put you into 3rd and 26, or, maybe it was only 3rd and 8 instead of 3rd and 13 or whatever. And those are the mistakes he made in his first 3 years. And people have a short memory, they forget. Eli needed like 4 years to really get going. Okay. I remember I was there every day. I saw it. And Danny's to me at the same point, but yet he's got those legs are like freaking Seabiscuit. I'm sorry. He has legs like Seabiscuit, and this guy is just, I think Danny is unbelievable. And I want to roll up that Brinks truck, and no more Danny Dimes. It's Danny Dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy deserves to get paid. I'm not saying he needs 40 mil. I think the Giants have played this perfectly in terms of the option, but he proved himself just like Aaron Judge had to step up big and prove himself, in the Yankees here. And Danny needs to be, look, I'm not the capologist. We'd have to call Tenenbaum, who went to school with me. He knows the cap numbers. I don't know if it's a $30 million a year or $35 million, but I mean, would you rather have Derek Carr? Would you rather have Jimmy Garoppolo? Okay, I know Jimmy G is handsome and he seems like a great guy, but put that aside. That's not the football. He's hurt every year.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about, like, do you want an older Tom Brady who's now done, an older Aaron Rodgers who has 2 or 3 years left? Like, I think Danny Jones is at the top of that medium level, and he certainly could get to what's the guy in Jacksonville? I'm blanking now with that.
Trevor Lawrence.
Could he get to that? Like, Trevor's taking the next step now. Like, it's Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow, and then like Trevor's hanging around. But I mean, I think Danny will surpass Kirk Cousins. I think Danny will surpass Dak Prescott. I think Danny will surpass Justin Herbert. I think is also at the elevation level with Lawrence. I think he's really, really talented. So I'm all in. I mean, whatever we have to do to get Danny Jones locked up in going into his second year, if we can keep Kafka and keep the offensive kind of coordination and the book and the meetings and the all that together, I think you're going to see Danny Jones even have a better year next year.
100%.
Yep.
So I'm all for it. What about Barkley? I'm a little worried about Barkley. I feel like there's been a number thrown out there that he wants, and it's a little unrealistic for an incredible running back who the position just seems to always get hurt. What are your thoughts on how we retain Barkley?
Yeah, I love Saquon. I want him to stay a Giant. I want him to be a Giant for the rest of his career. I know that he has openly said that, and I think that he wants it too. I think he's one of those players that you could probably trust a little bit more when he says things like that. I don't think he's blowing smoke in the media's ear. I think he's sincere about it. I do think at the end of the day that money talks, but when he says things like, I don't want to test the market, I don't want to be a free agent and see what else is out there, I think he probably means that to a degree. But, the reports that I saw was that they were talking about 12 million during the bye week, and he felt like that wasn't enough. Oh. So I think that's fine. I think you can go to 13, 14. I think he's worth a maximum of 14 million, but I wouldn't pay him any more than that. When you look at the other running backs, now Zeke Elliott is wildly overpaid. You talked about it earlier. I've been saying it too. As long as Jerry Jones is the owner of the Cowboys, he is going to destroy that organization. And
absolutely
good for us as Giants fans. I like to watch it crumble. But there's no doubt that he is the reason why this team is what it is, and they
100%.
Can't win playoff games. And now you've
He's
got
the only
Dak
consistent
Prescott.
one. Yeah.
Now you've got Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott, who between the two of them are going to have something like over $60 million in as a cap hit next year.
Yeah.
And Zeke Elliott doesn't deserve it, and neither does Dak. So
no, their other running back had a pretty good. Was it Pollock?
Yes, Pollard.
Yeah, Pollard.
Yep.
I thought he was doing great right in the playoffs. And I mean, Zeke, listen, a couple of years ago, he was incredible. But the past 2 seasons, it's taken a step off. Now, I think the salary cap may be going up a little bit this year. I mean, there's all big revenue share, and there's money that goes back to the players. So Joe Shane hopefully will have more to work with. But I think we can all agree we also need to tie up a number one receiver, right? Like, who's the big guy that's going to get that 50-yard pass? I mean, remember Plaxico, how you could always rely on throwing him that play, that ball, or even Nix and Manningham and Cruz. These guys just could catch a big ball. This year, I feel like some of these receivers literally outplayed their pay. I mean, what's his name?
Some of these receivers were on a couch 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, Isaiah Hodgins, right? This guy barely was on the team. An old Buffalo guy, I think, too. And I mean, he did a marvelous job being plugged in there, and he really started playing well. And hopefully he gets his payday, whether it's here or somewhere else. But I just, you look at the Bengals and you're like, man, they got like 2 number ones, and Jefferson was just ridiculous this year.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need that. And then, of course, linebacker. The Giants have never since, since those 80, 86, 90 team, they've just never really had linebackers, I feel like, in the last 25 years. And then, of course, anything we can do to add to the offensive line. I mean, we're making the right steps. Let me ask you a question. Everybody has been so hard on Gettleman and what he did and how he messed up the organization. But do you think that maybe Gettleman's sweater vest gets a little bit of dust taken off, and maybe one day if this team were to go win a Super Bowl, which I happen to think is possible in the next 3 years, by the way, and you think there's a chance that kind of penny gets, that rusted penny gets cleaned off a little, and people look back and go, you know what, Gettleman did kind of step up and take Jones. He was right on with Andrew Thomas. He's made some good moves back then. Do you think the narrative changes a little bit, and that just maybe he needed a little more time? And I'm glad we made the changes, by the way.
Yeah, it's happening already. There has been a lot of revolutionist history going down on Twitter. But I understand and I agree to a degree, because when I had this argument with someone recently, I actually went back and did all of the research, and because someone called him an elite drafter, and I just said, you are being overly kind. Out of the 32 draft picks that he picked, only 8 of them are still with the Giants and are starters.
Wow.
There are a lot of other guys who are no longer in the league. They are seconds on other teams. I mean, you got someone like Eli Apple, who just is destroying himself.
Just get it together. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will give him credit for the 8 draft picks. I mean, guys like McKinney, Love, Thomas, Jones, yes, deserves it. Overall, though, I don't think he was a good GM. And I think there's a lot of other factors. I think when you only have a quarter of your draft picks succeed, that's troublesome, especially when you passed on guys like Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater. I mean, there's a million guys, Fred Warner, who
Josh Allen. I think we passed on Josh Allen.
We did pass on Josh Allen. So, which I think if it works out,
and a lot of other executives made a lot of these mistakes too, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
My problem with Gettleman is the communication issues. Xavier McKinney just did an interview the other day saying, that the way things were in the building, that they didn't even want to watch film because it was such a horrible atmosphere. I mean, and you see what the new regime has done to these players.
Old school mentality versus more, let's put our arms around you. Let's show you that we love you and let's support you and build you up. Totally different way of looking at things versus, this is how we've always done it. We're the New York Giants. We have 4 Super Bowls. We're from 1925. It's our way or the highway.
Right.
Versus kind of a new generation of player that wants to be more involved. They want to have their own, Draymond Green wants to have his own podcast on the Warriors, and a lot of guys want to do different things. And sometimes you got to respect that, that they're more complex and complicated than just a football player. Right. I mean, and that's why Barkley should take less money, right, Dougie? He's in New York City. I mean, let's get him a Campbell's soup. Let's get him, let's get him doing the Empire State Building lighting, because the guy that was lighting it up as the Eagles, that guy needs to be fired.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get started with that.
I mean, can you believe it? What kind of idiot?
You guys are bringing up. I mean,
what kind of idiot would do that?
Yeah.
I mean, who thought that was a good idea?
That was the dumbest. We're going to go there. Before we go there, though, I just want to say, I feel like how we handled the transition from Danny to from Eli to Danny was a little botched a little bit.
That of course that was Geno Smith
Hugely
needed a game in there. That was a disaster.
Yeah, that was.
But that's old news.
That's still a scar on my heart.
That's a scar in your heart.
This guy's the Iron Man, never misses a game.
He's Cal Ripken.
And then look, Danny's great, and that has nothing to do with where he's drafted, whatever. But just like Aaron Rodgers was saying,
with Jordan Love,
draft me a wide receiver, and you're drafting another quarterback. I don't like how that was handled. And I don't like how the Empire State Building is being handled right now either.
I started texting all my friends. I'm like, this can't be true, and I don't even have Twitter, and I was seeing it on Twitter.
Did you see Top Gun?
No, I never saw Top Gun. The original one, of course.
The original one. So, when he drives by the control center after he wins the whatever, he goes and they have him in the office, and the admiral's yelling at the other admiral. It's like, I want some butts.
Yeah,
I want some butts. I want some Empire State butts.
But someone's head needs to roll there, people. I mean, come on. I mean, the weatherman never gets it right, and now no accountability, and now this guy or this woman, whoever did it, they got to go. I'm sorry.
Whoever did it too is like think it's a joke. They put like
it's
Dave
funny.
Portnoy
Yeah.
like was like this is a disgrace. Like how could you do this? And they put like a video of Dave Portnoy like crying. Like they were like
Yeah.
making fun of him. Like they're like taking it as a joke. No, this is serious business.
Well, it's a real estate
Yeah.
business.
you
now,
need to
right?
go.
Someone paid a lot of money for the Empire State Building, and they want the press and they want us talking about it.
Burn it
And
down.
talking about real, actually, let's transition to real estate for a sec. What do you think about MetLife Stadium? A lot of people have different viewpoints on kind of the feel of it. You know, I know you're an old school Giant Stadium fan. Do you enjoy your MetLife experience? Do you think it would have been smart to put a retractable roof that maybe they'd have more events throughout the year in the cold? Do you buy into that old kind of Giants, keep it cold, put the Giants on the sunny side, that advantage that the Maras talk about?
I don't know. You know, I just had this conversation with someone because they talk about the home field advantage and this and that. Look at the Buffalo Cincinnati game. You're going to tell me that Buffalo had the advantage with all that snow and came out looking
Right.
horrendous? I don't
Horrendous.
buy
No
it.
footing.
Yeah. I would like a retractable roof. I would like to see them do other events. I think the PSL is absolute trash. You have two teams paying for season tickets and you need to charge a PSL. I don't think that's fair. My grandfather went to every single home game for 30 years, if not more, when he had the season tickets. He had to give up the season tickets when they instituted the PSL and turned it to MetLife. And I was
That
like,
stinks, yeah.
that could have been these could have been my tickets. My brother and I could have
Yep.
been going to all these games.
Absolutely.
So I don't like it. You know, I went to the Cowboys game and how many times have they had these football games? I've been to a bunch of them. I have never seen the traffic like I have seen it that Monday night game. I mean, I missed kickoff because it took me an hour to drive a mile. I think that there's a better way to do it. And I don't know why they haven't figured it out by now, but I think we need to evict the Jets and it needs to go back to Giant Stadium, get the MetLife name out of here.
I hope Woody
them to
Johnson's
New
not
York.
watching. Oh my God. I think the timing was really bad when the property got pitched and then later developed. I think it was it opened during the 2008, recession. I think it was just the costs were so expensive. I think it probably got pitched coming out of 9/11 era. And it's kind of coming together. The Jets and the Giants are going to have the stadium together. And the Jets wanted to really be seen as an equal, not a little baby stepbrother. And, instead of, the PS, I think we did an episode on PSLs. We've talked about it where basically instead of going to the public to get larger bonds and increase taxpayer money, the PSL basically says to the fan, hey, you're the one that's going to put up the money. It's kind of privately funded, basically. Now, we ended up doing it because we have great seats. We didn't want to lose them. We were afraid that we were going to get them taken away from us because, again, we used to be sponsors and we haven't been sponsors in 15, 20 years. So we said, all right, we're going to pay it and we're going to do it. And it's worked out good. Sometimes we could, sell a game or two during the lean years and help pay back. I know a lot of fans do that, pay back the cost of the PSL. But, I've been to some concerts there this summer and it was a great experience. But I do feel like we're kind of missing more year-round events that the roof would help do that and would create, you go to Glendale for the Arizona Stadium or Dallas. I mean, it's just incredible what they can do all year round. It brings in just not only new lines of revenue for them, but also it brings people to the community to want to be there, and want to go to the hotels, go to the restaurants for dinner. That all trickles down in an economy.
And not get rained on.
and maybe
not get rained on.
Good point. Maybe you can wear shorts and a t-shirt to the
there
game.
was like 4 games this season. I was in a poncho.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and then
Like,
you know what? Maybe people would
get
then
rained
go.
on here.
Maybe you would spend more money in the stadium if the experience is better as well.
Yeah.
And you don't know this, but my background is sport management. That's what I studied in school at UMass, and I've worked for 3 professional teams. So we've talked about a lot of different sports business, kind of avenues. And it's not, everyone obviously thinks there's a better way and there's easier. And there's a lot of things that are right with MetLife. But I think there's also a lot of things that are wrong. I think the average fan experience, like non-club, non-suites, just kind of average Joe fan, I think is really not that great in terms of the food and beverage. But I will say, like, the pricing for the tickets, if you buy them regular season tickets to the Giants, have been very reasonable for the average fan. I think our tickets are like $160, $150. And, if that were deemed a club section in another stadium, and I'm on like the 5 to 10 yard line, that could easily be $500. Or if that were at the Warriors game, that would be hundreds of dollars, if not thousands. Like, so certain markets around the country where there's, New York's a big money market, but I don't think the seat price is priced as a big money. Go look at Knicks tickets.
But also you
right?
got they're also charging crazy money on these PSLs. So
Right.
like you're paying like the ticket price is one thing, but like the person who doesn't have season tickets, like for the Monday night game, I went to the Monday night game against the Cowboys. I just
Right.
looked just for
On
shits and
StubHub
giggles to
or-
see
yeah.
the stuff up. It's like $700 or $1,000 for the same exact for my tickets that I paid $150 for.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. But, I think last minute, like there's 80,000 tickets. I think the best recommendation I can make for a fan out there is wait to the last minute. Someone else's
Mhm.
kid gets sick. Somebody changes their plans. Like now tickets are all digital. So it's so easy. You don't have to wait. You
Right.
used to FedEx them or meet the bookie down the street, whatever,
Or get scammed in the parking lot.
Yeah,
and
you
Yeah.
don't want
work.
to. Yeah, I mean that's pretty scary. But I wanted to make one comment to you, and then we're going to transition and we're going to talk a little bit about the hedges updates, and then we'll wrap up. And it's an important comment that I wanted the audience to hear as well, especially my producer Pat. And I think it goes back to when you were talking about starting the podcast, and how would people see you as a young woman who didn't play football, didn't coach football, right? It's not your bread and butter. And I think what's important for people to understand is you can't let anybody rent for free in your head, right? And I think it's
Mhm.
something that people really forget about. And it's like whether you're dealing with a work issue or a personal issue, you're not the main event in everybody else's life, right? You're not
Yes.
Tom Cruise in Top Gun every day in everyone else's life. And so I think people get really hung up on how they're being perceived by others.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying go out there and be Antonio Brown and some of the things he pulled this year, or was it last year maybe, were just unacceptable, right?
Yeah.
I think we all kind of objectively know that, but don't let anybody rent for free in your head. When you go for something, whether you fail or not, it's just you pick yourself up, you adjust. Life is all about trial and error, whether it's your businesses, your relationships, a podcast. And no one's going to know. And maybe you're going to get 1,000 listeners, and maybe you're going to get 10,000. I don't think I've ever had more than 50 probably viewers or watchers on a show. But you know what? That doesn't matter. I'm enjoying doing this. I love talking to other people. I love meeting new people. And if I can provide anything that's helpful to the audience, that's great. All it takes is a few people to really engage and really appreciate. And the fact that people are now texting you or DMing you and saying, hey, did Joan sign? Like they're relying on you. I can tell that you totally light up when you hear that. And like after that Minnesota game, it's like, yeah, I want to be a part of a community. Everybody wants to be part of a community. And so I thank you. And I take, pat on the back kind of for helping to create a sense of community where people can belong and talk Giants, and especially to be a young woman and be out there and say, hey, I can do it. You can do it. Let's all do it together. So hats off to you. And, let's stay in touch and hopefully, root on the Giants together this season. And, I appreciate you coming on the show. And again, if anybody wants to talk Giants football, follow her podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple. We have the Instagram, right? It was New York Giants fangirl right here. They can reach out to you, ask any questions about the Giants. Hopefully the Eagle fans and the Cowboy fans will clean up some of the things that they've been saying to you recently, right?
Hope so.
I don't know if I don't want to go there, but I just want to thank you for being on the show with us, and stay in touch, and go Giants.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a great conversation. And one thing to reiterate what you said before I go is it's what you said is such an important reminder is that, even I sometimes, like when I do my Instagram stories, I'm like embarrassed to have my phone out like this when I'm walking down my street or something. But then you think about it for a second and it's ridiculous, right? It's like someone's driving by in a car and they're probably going, oh, maybe she's on FaceTime or whatever. And then that's the end of it. They're not spending the rest of their day talking about that stranger who they don't know with the phone out like this, doing whatever they were doing. So I think it's just a good reminder that, other people shouldn't dictate what you want to do with your life, whether it's something like this or getting a new job or starting a hobby, whatever it is. And you're always you're always going to be a beginner until you figure it out. I mean, I recently started taking golf lessons and I can't putt for the life of me, but I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point the more I continue to practice and learn. But I would just say to don't give up. You know, if you really love it, I think that's one thing that people can tell about me when I'm on stories is I'm not exaggerating how excited I am. I just really love the Giants.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of time, you know, looking at the beat writers that I trust and checking the Giants website, and I listen to other podcasts. And, you know, I actually just took a 3-course class from a former NFL coach who taught a bunch of women about, you know, running between the gaps and offensive schemes and defensive schemes. And I just think that, you know, when men who are insecure and come out and say you don't know anything about football, I think you can learn without having to be on the field. And I just, yeah, I don't know. I think it's
That's
important
amazing.
to keep learning, keep putting yourself out there. That's the only way to get what you want out of life, regardless of what it is. And, you know, if someone tells you, like they tell me, that women belong in the kitchen making a sandwich and not making not watching football, I either ignore it or I clap back at them, because you don't have any right to sit there and tell me something negative and rude when you have no idea how much research and how much I know about football and the Giants. You know, then I'm just going to come back and tell you that you have a small brain. So, you know,
that's a friendly way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So thanks again for joining us. So great to see you. And good luck in the following the Giants. I'll be listening to the offseason, you know, Senior Bowl, draft, lots of good stuff coming up, free agency. So we'll all be listening and enjoying. And then we'll check in with you next season.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you
All right.
guys so much for having
Great
me.
rest of the day.
You too.
Dougie, you have you want to throw up some photos from Hedges? Just a quick little update. We're getting closer and closer by the day. For those who, thanks for staying on to the end here, getting the last little nugget of our program. We're finishing up the family legacy property. It's 118 luxury apartment units in Hawthorne, New Jersey. Not so far from some of the areas that she mentioned where she had grown up, and self-storage with CubeSmart and Planet Fitness. And the Planet Fitness is rocking and rolling. The parking lot's full, which is great.
Where would you like to start? You want to just throw one up there and
just
you just wing it?
Throwing them up, and
All
I'll tell
right,
you what
we'll
I
throw it up there. We're throwing it up there.
There's some good stuff here. Wow. Okay, there we go. So this is a picture of some of the co-working suites that we have in the common area. So there's like 4 phone booths where you can literally go in, take your laptop, take a phone call, have some privacy, and do some work. Because I think working from home is a big deal now. And we think people that are going to want to, you know, have their home at the Hedges are going to want to have the ability to step out of their apartment and do a little work without having to pay for an office or go to an office. We got a big delivery of cabinets for that area. Yep, that's all like the kitchen cabinets. There's the fireplace in the background coming together. And I think like in the next week or two, this area should be pretty finished.
Wow.
In the middle. I gave you a picture of like a really cool green wall. Did that come in?
Yeah.
Let me show you that. So this is when you first walk into Hedges, you're going to see this incredible slat wall. That's what those little black and white lines are. It's like wood slats. And then this is like a real alive moss, green moss.
Wow.
They tell me it's maintenance free. I am not a, I don't have a green thumb. I'm not a,
you got a green wall.
Arborist. Yeah. I just wanted a green wall.
You have a green thumb. You got a green wall.
I want people to feel the oxygen off the living plants. You know, everything's about health and wellness with Hedges and having a great aspirational life. And so that I just saw that picture. I was like, wow, that's cool. That's
nice.
Looking good. So hopefully we can finish up the apartments by maybe the second week of March is the goal. And, you know, get the staff in there, start doing our tours, get our leasing office going. And, you know, the goal would be to get people moving in the first week of April. I mean, if that's going to happen, we're around the corner here.
Nice.
So it's been a run, and I'm excited. You know, the family's excited.
It's exciting stuff.
We're rocking and rolling. We have 2,700 people on the waiting list for information.
Oh man!
If I could just get all of them to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our little program,
that should be a prerequisite.
I could have Dunkin'
You want
Donuts.
an apartment at the Hedges at Hawthorne? You need to be following the Get Up with Garret show.
Absolutely.
Or you're out.
Absolutely. And we have the Planet Fitness grand opening coming up
Yeah.
February 16th, right? I'm hoping that you'll be able to come by and say hi. Z100 is going to be doing some
Wowee.
DJ music. So if you're in the area, come by, meet me. Love to say hello. And anytime you want to email the show, we still have our email address, right? getupwithgarret@gmail.com. And there it is. So just want to, again, thank everyone for spending their day with us. I want to remind everyone to have an attitude of gratitude, right? Think about that. Have an attitude of gratitude and make sure you have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Play me out of here, Dougie.